how to keep your muscle and get shredded. Let's go. So what we want to do here is maintain all the gains you made, but showcase it by getting you inside out peeled. This question was inspired by a comment from a recent video. Hey Tom, notice you tend to do quick fat loss phases, avoiding being in a prolonged deficit, seeing 1 kg drops per week at a time. Very true, that is what we do. What's the rate of loss on average per week you would look to recommend going from 12% to 8% body fat without risking muscle loss when training hard, being active and eating correct macros? Cheers, bro. So let's break down exactly how I did this with one of our Gorilla Platoon members, who is also my younger, maybe better, but probably not, but more better looking than me. He probably is actually a little bit leaner. So this was him. We did a photo shoot. This was him on the shoot. As you can see here, very, very lean. Maybe the leanest guy we ever had in the Gorilla Platoon. Very full. He definitely didn't lose muscle. I mean, if anything, it kind of looks like he built more, doesn't it? But he went from around about, I mean, maybe I'm being harsh at 13%, and maybe I'm being also conservative at 9%. You could say he went from like 12 to 8, or maybe that's even 5, like 6. He's peeled, right? But I'm always quite modest with body fat, because I think it's something that even I in the past have overshot how lean it is. People always overestimate how lean they are and underestimate how much body fat they are. But anyway, I digress from the point. We're going to speak about this result and how we got it. And obviously, we've done this on numerous occasions at the Gorilla Platoon. If you're new to the channel, by the way, welcome. This is the Gorilla Platoon Online Physique Transformation Program, where what we really do is body recomp. Get people a six-pack, showcase more muscle, drop off body fat, and obviously don't lose muscle in the process of doing so. So let's get straight into how I do this to achieve these level of results. First thing we want to understand, the longer and the harder you need to diet, the more chance you have of losing gains, obviously. So if you, and I'll be honest, if you need to go from something like this to this, you are going to run more of a chance of losing gains than someone that went from like this to this or this to this. You know, if someone's already starting fairly lean, you've got a better chance of holding on to more muscle. Because, and I'm a prime example of this, the last dieting phase I did, I only really needed to lose about 5 or 6 kilo, and I did it over 12 weeks. So I didn't go that rapid, didn't go aggressive. 12 weeks is not that long to diet, really, and I was probably ready in about 10 weeks anyway. So because of that, I can keep my food so high. When you can keep your food high, what are you more able to maintain? Training performance. If you're better able at maintaining training performance, more chance of holding on to the density that you worked so hard for. But you can see on multiple occasions here where we've dropped off body fat, maintained muscle mass. Dropped off body fat, maintained muscle mass. Some of the guys actually recomped and look bigger and better in their after shots. But we can see here on numerous occasions where we've been able to drop off a great amount of body fat and hold on to muscle mass. What do we mean by dieting harder? This is more, you haven't got long, so you've got a shorter time, but you've got more to get off. Unfortunately, if this is the case, you're going to have to diet harder. This means deeper or less calories in and more calories out. So more hunger signaling, higher fatigue, which is unfortunate. But listen, if you left it late and you've got a date to be ready for, then it is what it is. You're going to have to suffer because technically you've had less time suffering anyway because you're going to do it in a shorter time frame. One thing I will say, and I'll try and think of an analogy for this, but yeah, it's almost like when you're turning a liquid into a solid. You know, like when you whisk like cream and stuff, starts off like really like fine and it's like gloopy. And if you keep blasting it, whisk, it gets to the point where it's like stiff and it's hard. Almost look at this like your body. So if you're starting at 25% body fat, you may do your first cut and you may get down to like 15 where you're like, yeah, I kind of look kind of good. I can see an outline of some abs. I look significantly better when I've dropped 10% of body fat. And then what you might want to do is sit in a holding phase for a bit, train, and then go into your next one, because that's going to give you less chance of losing muscle mass. Now, some of you, if you need to diet down a lot and you've got a lot to come off, you're going to run the risk of losing a lot more muscle. So if you can break it up into 2 phases with a maintenance, or what I like to call a holding phase in between, we're going to give our our chance of restoring training performance because more food's going in. Therefore, you're able to get stronger. Getting stronger doesn't always equate to more muscle, but I think it's a pretty safe bet. If you are getting stronger in the gym, fresh air isn't moving that new muscle. So therefore, we are getting stronger. And this is what I'll do with long-term Gorilla Pursuit members. Some of them, I'll push them all the way to get as much body fat off as quick as possible if they're responsive. If they're not and they've got a lot of body fat to pull off, what we'll do is we'll run first phase, 12, 15 weeks, get as much off as possible. We can even go aggressive in this. And then in the next 6 weeks, holding phase, train, restore training performance, bang, we go into the next phase again with not that much to lose. And that's how you can really maintain and look after a lot of muscle mass. Now, let's get into some specifics in how I set up Josh when we went through his protocol. Now, Josh only needed to lose about 3 kilograms. And to be fair, we did it at a rate of around 1% of the scale weight per week. So we didn't need to rock it off a kilo per week. And now, with this, he was ready early. So I'll come on to the benefits of being ready early and then what we got to do with that. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates in the muscle, is finite when in calorie deficit. So if we understand we've got a finite amount of glycogen, we don't want to spunk it on garbage. And what I mean by that is you don't want to be doing loads of sets of where you train at, let's say if the barrier to gains is here, G for gains. If this is the barrier for gains, but this is the barrier for, let's call this hard, we'll call it hard training. Hard training / fatiguing. A lot of people will get into this space and they'll do a lot of work around here, a lot of work. They'll do 4 sets of 8 to 12. The problem is they've not done anything that's going to breach past the line of gains, making the body do something it's never done before. So what tends to happen is you burn a lot of glycogen. You accumulate a lot of fatigue at no real extra gains. What we want to do is not be that, we don't want to burn that much glycogen and waste our effort, waste our fatigue, waste our finite amount of energy. How we want to train for this, so instead of doing 4 sets, because this is what this is going to do, 4 sets equals this. A method I would want you to approach is to do what is known as 2 sets, and this is where you do a top set and a back off set. Now the top set is going to be a 6 to 10 rep range. And you're going to lift as much as you humanly can within that rep range on that movement. This is going to be a hard set. You should almost finish this set and have no real desire to do any more sets. If you left the gym, the muscle had been cooked after that one set. So a lot of you aren't training hard enough to the point where your last repetition should take 4 seconds to contract, or you don't even finish it at all. If you do, I want you to slowly come down. Try again to the point where you just can't even finish the movement. That's how you know you're done. Or you've got a spotter and he'll just help you grind it out. And then from there, you're going to have a good 3 minutes rest. 3 minutes rest. Then what you're going to do is drop the load on the back off set by 20%. And you're then going to aim for a higher rep range. So we're talking 12 to 15. And that is it. You're in and out. You've breached the barrier of gains. You've done 2 hard sets, which have been more effective than the 4 high volume sets you were doing before. And now you can get out. Now you can go and do another exercise. And therefore you only need to hit honestly, if you did 4 sets for a big compound movement, if you just did that, it's enough to stimulate the muscle. I do this now within my training where on one of the days it's an upper session, I'll do 2 chest and 2 back exercises and a top set, back off set, and I'm absolutely cooked by the end of it. But it takes, the only thing I will say with this method, it's great, it trains with intensity, you're efficient at using your glycogen, because if you think about it, I know you're going to failure, well you're going to be in the space of failure on both, but in this analogy, you're able to push it hard. Whereas in the other one, so therefore you're only able to get really, let's say you train at 8 to 12 and you finish and you could have done 3 or 4 more reps. Well, that's only 3 or 4 more reps in this one that you actually do. It's not another full set off the back of it that burns more glycogen. Plus you're having a lot more rest and it's time efficiency, you're out the gym. So this is the method I like to use for this. And it forces you to train hard, it forces you to do something you've never done before, and it forces you to be efficient with your fuel which you've got for this. The only caveat I would say is it doesn't work as well on isolation, because to lift really heavy on isolation is not as effective. So on an isolation, when you've done the brunt of your work, yeah, you can drop the weight a little bit. Yeah, you can do a little bit higher reps. But even then, I still like to I'll do 3 sets on an isolation, and I'll do 2 sets of 12 to 15, and maybe 1 set of more like an 8 to 12 for an isolation. So glycogen is a finite amount, and I want you to train like this to really use it effectively. So you're putting it to good use. Now, how do I set up nutrition when it comes to a fat loss phase with the goal of holding on to as much muscle as possible? There are a few things which are important. Number one is high calories. Now, calories as high as they possibly can be. So in this analogy, when Josh started out, we didn't need to shoot really low really quick because we weren't rushed for time, we didn't have loads to get off, and I knew his metabolism was actually in a good space. Which, to be fair, if you're asking me this question and you're pretty lean and you need to go from lean to shredded, your metabolism is probably going to be in a good space. So we're going to go high calories, and what we're going to do is just start off at 200 below maintenance. And we're going to assess how we get on with that. Now, simultaneously to that, we're going to do the next C, which is cardio. We're going to start 20 minutes per day at a heart rate that is doable of, on average, 125. I say 120 to 130, but we're going to do 125 BPM. And then now inside the calories, what do we think is the most important macronutrient for training performance? It's going to be not protein, although protein's important, and let's be honest, you're not going to skip your protein target, but it's actually getting as much carbohydrates as we can inside your calories. So not only are we going to shoot too low on calories, because we're going to keep them as high as we can for as long as we can, because we're going to go push more cardio, we're going to keep your carbs as high as you can. Now, if we can keep your carbs high, what can we program to be smart? We can program your around the workout carbohydrates, so your pre and your post carbs to be high. The ones away from the workout, less important. But if we can go into the gym having had a good amount of carbs prior, how are you going to train? You're going to train efficiently, you're going to train effectively for this. You're going to utilize the carbs that we do have. And then you're going to get out of the gym, replenish those carbs quickly afterwards. And then obviously you diet, you have the rest in and around you. So what this does is you go into the gym not feeling like you're really depleted because you've just eaten a good amount of carbs. You've had your water. Make sure you hydrate very, very well in a deficit, because you need carbs, but you need water for the two to go together and to fill into the muscle as glycogen. It's called carbohydrates. Basically a carb that needs hydrating is the way to remember that one. So I always like to go high carb. And if you're in a fat loss phase where you've not got that much to lose in not that long time, you can definitely just pull from fats. I'll start someone at 20% of their total calories from fats, and I'll just chip away at that when I need to see the food come down. But first, I'm going to play the card of cardio, 20 minutes daily, then I'll go 30 minutes daily, then I'll go 40 minutes daily. Then I'll look at 200 calories from fats, then another 200 calories from fats. I've had 5 turns of the wheels there where I haven't even had to touch your carbs. And we've just got you active, we've got you burning. So this is how I like to run my nutrition setup for the guys. The last point I want to leave you with is when to refeed or de-output. So a de-output is something I would use for those of you that have more to get off. And this is where you've accumulated a lot of fatigue from cardio. So all you're going to do for 2 days, no cardio, completely drop it off, rest, restore, get an extra hour sleeping if you need it, or an afternoon nap, and therefore we can drop off fatigue. Beautiful. I did this for one of our members. In fact, it was actually this guy before we did his photo shoot. Very diligent. One of the best Gorilla 2 members I've had to date. Still, obviously, is with me now, growing like a garden weed, by the way. And we were like, he's not dropping. He was like, I don't get it. I'm like, I'm doing everything. I'm following everything to the T. I'm like, it could be we've accumulated a little bit too much fatigue and inflammation is high. Let's run a de-output for, I think we ran it for at least 2, it might have even been 3 days, I can't remember off the top of my head. And then from there, did it. What happened? Started to drop again, because we'd reduced fatigue, we'd reduced inflammation. So they can be used, I would say use these first. Now, for Josh and also for Andras, they were ready early. They were ready about 3 weeks early. So guess what I got to do? I got to trial refeeds, but in the form of what we actually call high carb days, or high carb days. Now, the beautiful thing about this, what do we get to do? Well, if you're ready early or lean early, what do we get to do? We get to replenish the Holy Grail, glycogen. We get to replenish glycogen. Now, the way you're going to do this is you're going to take your lean weight, which, I mean, if you're ready early, he was probably, let's say he was 9%. So you take his scale weight. You know what? I'll actually type this so it's clearer than my absolute reception level handwriting. So we go like this. We go scale weight. And we minus body fat percentage. So let's say, for argument's sake, he was... let's go underneath 65 kg. We will minus 9%. From there, the answer to that, you're going to times it by, in the initial phases, you're going to times it by 8. And the answer to that is going to be, the 3-digit number is going to be the amount of carbs you eat. And you are also going to pull protein in half. And that way it makes room for the carbs you put in. So the refeed should not be a massive calorie influx. It may be just above maintenance, and that's okay, but it won't be a massive increase. Now, 8 to 12, where does that come from? This is what the researchers, the studiers, the people probably a little bit smarter than me have come up with. I like to go 8 on the lower side, because if you're doing this for the first time, you're not going to have data behind how that responds to you. So go lower, be conservative, see what you get, see how full you look, and that can be determined by how much scale increased and plus photos. Now, just some side tips for you to add as well. You want a good 6 grams of pink salt. This is good for pumps. And it depends on the size of you, but we need water. I mean, for me, I'm like I'm like 77 kg. I'd need at least 5 liters. For Josh, maybe probably could have got away with 4. So we'll go 4. We'll just go 4 or 5. Again, it just depends on the size of you, because you need carbs plus salt plus the water to fill you out, and then you're going to do what is known as a pump session, where the sole goal is driving blood into the tissue so you can take photos and see how you're looking. And all of this is going to allow you to collect data. What happened the next day on the scale? Did you shoot up by 1 kilo? Did you stay around the same weight? Did you even gain weight at all? And for him, where I think Andras, he didn't even gain weight at all, so we were able to run higher again. I think with Josh as well, we also trialed a bit more, but we did it the week after. Now we can get away with doing this because we've got time. So we did try 8. We did times 8. Yeah, cool. Looks quite nice, quite full. Let's see, can we get a bit more in the next one? Let's try times 9. And obviously, what can happen at the end is, and why do I make this point? Well, if you're going to this level of leanness, this actually matters, because if you eat too much, you will do what's known as, and it's a funny term, me and my coaches always say to each other, you'll be spilt. And spilt is where the muscles will be very full, but around here will look a bit blurry and watery. So we don't want that. So if that happens, give it a day of like just usual steps in training. That will tighten up very, very nicely. This actually happened, to be fair, where I was trialing it with, where is he? This guy here. We did it with him, actually spilt a little bit, but we did it early enough where we had time to rectify the next day. Moved him around, moved some of the food around, and then the next day woke up lean and dry and hard, and obviously it looked like this. So you're going to want to trial this, because you want to be, I mean, I would say here's perfect. Here's full, his muscles look full, but he's also very lean and dry. The only other thing you have is where you're flat, where the muscles still aren't brimming as much, and the pumps aren't as good. And this is where then you want to go from trialing at times 8 to times 9. Then maybe even to times 10. I think for both of these we ended up on times 10, absolutely filling them up to the bone. So that is how I approach someone that wants to go from leanish to very shredded. And that's how I manage it from nutrition, from output, or training, should I say, and then also in some tactics with food and output as well. So hopefully you found this useful. If you did, subscribe to the channel. If you want me to do this for you, there'll be a link in the description for one-to-one coaching with me or one of my Gorilla Platoon coaches. So yeah, if that's for you, I will see you on the inside and we will get you in the best shape of your life. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you tomorrow.